spirit, one voice, the sound of one who makes a choice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you, helping each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices three, singing together in harmony, surrendering to the mystery. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of voices three.
Welcome to this sacred space, grounded in authentic relationship, trust, and belonging. Welcome to this community who freely choose to care for one another across lifespan in times of joy, sorrow, and transition. Welcome to this place where we dedicate ourselves to acts of love and justice. Welcome to this historic place where together we build its future. In this spirit of radical hospitality, we now kindle our chalice flame.
Please join in singing our opening hymn, Love Will welcome all souls. To those who are in the sanctuary today and to those watching us on Zoom. I'm Kate Clark, pronouns she, hers. We are so delighted that you have chosen to join this congregation in worship. We are not only celebrating our 200th year, today we are dedicating ourselves to its future. We give thanks for those whose ancestral lands our building resides. The closest village was Nacotchtank, from which the name Anacostia is derived. They were part of the Piscataway Nation, of First Nations peoples on this land. We hold in gratitude their sacred lands upon which our sacred space has been built. For those of you online, from wherever on the planet you are watching today, welcome. For those in the sanctuary who are feeling the embrace of this historic building, welcome. For all the ancestors who have brought us to this moment, for all the children who are with us, welcome. We welcome you to our worship service today. An order of service can be found in the link in the chat or in the QR codes located on the pews and from the ushers. Welcome to this time and this place. Come, let all the dreamers wake the nation.
here at 16th and Harvard, hoping to see people from the past and maybe the present to share their role in Oslo's history. Here's someone now joining us from 150 years ago, Reverend Conway.
Yes, I'm Reverend Moncure Conway.
I understand that you were called to be the minister here in 1854 when you were just 22.
That's right, 22 years old and fresh out of divinity school. I arrived in a city where enslaving people was common practice and a civil war loomed on the horizon. The congregation seemed pleased with my first sermon. I called slavery the greatest of all sins and our special national sin.
But 2 years later, they let you go. What happened?
I believe that war is every bit as bad as slavery. So, I stood in that same pulpit and told them, if war comes, and it seems inevitable, 10 generations will scarcely see it concluded. But since there can be no compromise with slavery, let the South secede. At all costs, bloodshed must be avoided. The suggestion that I find new employment followed quickly thereafter. And rightly so. I was wrong to not see that until all people are free, no one is free.
Did you keep track of the congregation when you left?
I was pleased to learn that they partnered with the Baptists to turn the sanctuary into a hospital for the wounded, doing good work even in bad circumstances.
Thank you for your time, Reverend Conway. Back to you, Dolores.
Thanks, Ruth. It seems that this congregation has a history of offering healing in the face of war. You might remember from history class that the United States ended World War II by bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. Thousands of innocent people were harmed. But the newspapers published a photo of a celebratory cake in the shape of a mushroom cloud. All Souls Minister Reverend Apel Davies was appalled that anyone could celebrate such destruction. What are you hearing on the street?
Thanks, Dolores. And Also's family has just joined me. What can you tell us about the congregation's response to the bombing of Japan?
Reverend Davies was one of those preachers who backs his words up with action. He wanted to make sure we reached out to the victims in some tangible way.
All the kids collected school art supplies for the children whose schools had been destroyed. We packaged up half a ton, literally. The Japanese kids used the supplies to draw these beautiful pictures, showing the world as they remembered it before it was bombed.
They could find beauty even in the midst of all that destruction. It's an example for all of us. And our congregation's relationship with those children, who are now elders, continues today.
Thank you so much for talking with us. Pretty amazing story, Dolores.
I'll say, Ruth, that idea of putting words into action seems to be another All Souls tradition.
I think you're right. In preparing for the story, I learned that Mayor Fenty signed the Marriage Equality Act in the Oslo's sanctuary, honoring the congregation's work in passing that legislation. But rather than me talking about it, here's Oslo's congregant Michael Milano. Good morning, Michael.
Hey, Ruth, it's great to meet you. I'm a huge fan.
I understand that you and your husband, Wayne, were married here in 2013. What did that mean to you?
Oh, it's a great question. First, I want you to go back to 2009. Can you do that? Okay. Okay. So this sanctuary is filled with people, and the mayor is right there. All kind of people out here. Reverend Rob Hardy's is there because he helped lead D.C., the 6th state, to pass marriage equality. And then 4 years later, my husband and I stood there. Reverend Rob and Reverend Susan married us. It was coming together of the two most important things in my life, All Souls and my husband. And then to top it off, Gordon sang Imagine. And we no longer had to imagine getting married. Thanks, Ruth.
Thank you so much for talking about it. Thank you so much for stopping. That's it from me, Dolores. This is Ruth Benson, signing off.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in today to the UU News. Before we sing our children and teachers to their classes, I would just like to be sure you know where everybody's going. Children in K through 5th should exit that way and go downstairs to the dining room. The middle schoolers are upstairs in the tucker room, and the high schoolers are downstairs in the spirit room. So before we sing Sia Hanka, let's give a big round of applause.
Good morning, All Souls. I'm Neil Manzullo. I'm currently a member of the Board of Trustees. And this morning, I'd like to share with you a few ways that you can connect with each other during the upcoming week. So first, the big news is the Eaton Room. You are all invited to visit the rededicated and refurbished Eaton Room that's upstairs. The Silver Souls has been working for the past 5 years on this refurbishment. It includes a wall documenting the legacy of Reverend Eaton and a beautifully restored Eaton Room. There's going to be a special coffee hour on the terrace after the service with food and cake to celebrate that moment. Next thing, the search committee. So during February and March, lay leaders contacted every member of the congregation to ask, who do you trust to be on a search committee? We received 650 nominations for more than 200 different people. It's a lot of people. So today, all members of the church who are eligible to vote, which means everybody who has made a contribution of record during the past 15 months, received a ballot asking which of those folks nominated do you think should serve on a search committee. So please review your email and vote on that ballot. And then finally, the church goals. So today during the service, we're talking about the new church goals. You're invited to an informal discussion in the church library after the service, both today and next Sunday, and a discussion on Zoom at 7 p.m. on Thursday. And now, I'd like to welcome Reverend Kathleen up for a special announcement.
So as you've already heard, this is 2021-2022 is a year of All Souls anniversary. And for the past 5 years, Silver Souls has been working on a vision that included, as you heard, the refurbishment of the Eaton Room and the creation of the wall, which honors Reverend Eaton's legacy. So first, I'd like to ask if there are any members of Reverend Eaton's family with us today. If you are, would you please stand and be recognized? We had a lot with us yesterday, and really, really grateful. If you are a member of Silver Souls who are with us today, would you please stand or raise your hand? Thank you. Silver Souls, you poured your heart and soul into a celebratory dedication, and we give you our deepest thanks. Today, I am so pleased to recognize that Reverend Eaton's daughter, Claudia, was part of yesterday's celebration and is with us this morning. So Claudia, it is my privilege and honor to welcome you to the same pulpit your father occupied during his tenure to receive our gratitude and blessings on your father's ministry.
Thank you. You see, the first thing that happened was the step stool was removed.
I didn't think you needed it.
My heart is just pounding. I have not stood in this place since my father's funeral or memorial service in 1992. I'm really only here to say thank you to the Silver Souls for the very hard work, your time, and your dedication to preserving a legacy that obviously meant so much to me and my family, but to this community in your recognition of Reverend David Hilliard Eaton has just been awe-inspiring. This has been such a beautiful place to us. As you know how much it meant to my dad. The love in the room yesterday was amazing. The beauty and love in this room today has brought tears to my eyes. And to be able to be here today as you celebrate your vision for the future really means a lot to me. And for you to recognize my father today as you step into the future is just amazing. So I want to say one more time, and Silver Souls, I know there are several of you that we were on the phone together, and I don't want to try to mention names because if I leave anybody out, I will just feel absolutely awful. All of you Silver Souls, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And to the All Souls Church community, congregation, thank you. We do things for each other based on the most powerful force in the universe, love. Thank you.
That is truly a display of All Souls generosity. In every congregation's life, there are many joys which abound, and we're grateful that Reverend Eaton graced this congregation with his wisdom and humor, integrity, and passion. Now we turn our hearts and minds to the cares and concerns of this community and beyond the walls of this community. And we begin by acknowledging the beginning of Ramadan, the holiest month in the Islamic calendar, a month of fasting, prayer, and spiritual reflection. Ramadan Mubarak, and blessings on this holiest of times. It is with great sadness that we have several deaths of members of All Souls and of family members of this community to share with you. First, we acknowledge the passing of Julia Sales on Monday, March 28th. Julia was a member of All Souls for many years. She was a member of the choir, Vespers Village, Board of Trustees, Silver Souls, to name a few of her many volunteer roles. A service will be planned to be held at the UU Church of Arlington. This week, we also received news of the passing of Calvin Bryant, who died on March 29th. Calvin joined All Souls in 1959, and we remember both Calvin and his beloved wife, Ann Casey Bryant, who predeceased him. And we send our love and respect to his family, particularly his daughter, Kelly Tyler. A memorial service will be held at the Marshall March Funeral Home on Saturday, April 9th at 11 a.m. Our hearts go out to Shirley Blakely, whose brother Larry Waddell Howell died on Tuesday, March 29th, after a 3-week hospital stay. Shirley, we are holding you and your family in our hearts and minds and prayers as you grieve this loss. One of our former members, Rose Evangeline Evans Wells, died on March 30th. Evangeline was a member of All Souls until she moved to Adelphi, Maryland in 2019. Her daughter, Kristen, grew up at All Souls, and this place means a lot to her. They are planning on holding a service for her mother at All Souls next month. And finally, we are sad to announce the death of Jose Luis Sanchez, who died last Sunday, March 27th. Jose Luis was a member of the Beckner Committee, Vespers Village, devoted so much volunteer time and energy to social justice and the arts. Ebony Peace and I will be working together on a celebration of his life, tentatively planned for the first weekend in May. That's a lot. It's a lot. So, dear ones, please join with me in holding space for all of these losses, knowing how deeply and intimately we are interconnected with one another, how one life can illuminate our own, and how each death reminds us of how precious we are to one another. Join me in prayer. O love that will not let us go, let us hold space for these losses. Some of us know these names intimately as our lives crisscross like a woven piece of fabric, intersecting with one another's color and depth and light. O love that will not let us go, we bring our hearts to this moment of sadness and celebration. Grief for the letting go, and gladness for having lived and loved and dwelt together on this one precious, wild planet of ours. For these lives named and for those unnamed, we hold in holy silence. We are blessed by their memory, and we are held by the collective love of this community. And in so doing, we release them now to the spirit of life, which embraces us all. May all those joys and sorrows, spoken and unspoken, be held by our hearts today. I'm Reverend Kathleen Rollins, pronouns she, her, hers. And there are some people, like my husband, for example, who can immediately know which direction to turn without the help of GPS. It's like he has an operational compass installed in his brain that enables him to know where true north is at all times, and then he can orient himself accordingly. It's a rare gift. It is one that I do not have. I think they call this being directionally challenged. And as you know, it's more common than you think. That's why we invented GPSs, right? We all need help orienting ourselves in this rather disorienting space and time. So the compass. The compass, of course, is an early instrument still in use that tells us where true north is. And once you know where true north is, you can find your way almost anywhere. So it is true with congregations. So when you all sat down together last fall through the Imagining the Future process, you were telling the board essentially what was and where was your true north. In other words, what were the underlying values that you cherish about this congregation? And that those values should not be ignored, because what happens when you ignore true north? You navigate yourself in circles. So the purpose of those values-based conversations was to provide the next step, to map out where you want to go. So you could say that your current mission statement, to become a diverse, spirit-growing, justice-seeking community, is like the arrow of the compass that points you towards your values. And one of the things the board is going to be asking you to look at and to reconsider, as well as the goals, is that mission statement as part of your ongoing exploration about identity. Is this still who you are? Does this statement represent who you're becoming? Of course, it's not enough to have conversations about values. The next step is, where do you go with them? How do you read the landscape? And of course, maps. I love maps. They're like visual works of art, but they, of course, serve a purpose. The purpose is to help you get from one place to another. The church goals, which the board has been refining, is a roadmap that will guide your work as a congregation and with your new minister or ministry team for the next 5 years or so. Again, these goals, they're not just nice words. They are the roadmap by which you will navigate this ministry. So that's why the board has been so careful and deliberate about inviting your engagement. So, the compass, your values, the roadmap, your direction, and then there's the astrolabe, my favorite. I want one of those. If anybody finds one on eBay, let me know. I want one. Astrolabes have been called by the Smithsonian Magazine the original smartphone. These devices have an amazing variety of uses. They could tell time. They could allegedly predict the weather. But one of their most important functions was to help navigate the open seas by the stars. Now, I've read all about astrolabes. I can't describe to you in like a minute or less exactly how it works. But we know that it did, and we know that it was used by explorers for hundreds of years. And somehow, by manipulating these disks, a mariner could calculate the distance and the altitude of the stars, and by knowing where they were in relation to the open water, mariners could be fairly confident that they could get to their destination safely. Church work can sometimes feel like sailing on open waters. There are frequent storms. There are stretches of boredom, punctuated by gusts and gales. And sometimes congregations can feel adrift, like they're not really going anywhere, or they're just sort of going in circles. That's when you need to pull out your trusty astrolabe, which is you. You are the circles by which you will navigate these new stars, these new church goals. You are the instruments of your own destiny. You are the tools which will safely bring you to the next landscape. You are, as the saying goes, the ones you've been waiting for. So welcome home, All Souls.
In our opening hymn today, there are two lines that have always resonated with me in the 20-plus years that my family and I have been attending All Souls. You've heard it before. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way. For many decades, All Souls has invited and sustained a light within me and will continue because of you. Our first church goal that will guide us on our light-filled journey is, this is a quote of the goal, to become a multicultural, multiracial, multi-generational spiritual community that is grounded in authentic relationships, trust, and belonging. I will speak to why this goal is important to me both personally and professionally. So personally, I cannot imagine adopting and raising our terrific 19-year-old son, William, who is of Mayan heritage, in any other community but All Souls. From sharing nursery duties, his dedication, his owl education, and, as he is now an adult, begging him to get up and come to service with us on Sundays. This morning we were successful, and Will is here with us, and his brilliant and beautiful girlfriend, Mia. We're glad they're here. He is our starlight, and you, All Souls, keep our family grounded. As a multiracial family, we feel the warm light of love and belonging in this multicultural community. Yes, we hope in the coming years, All Souls will expand our multiculturalism and expand our individual relationships of trust and belonging. For example, my husband Neil and I belong to an All Souls Parents of Teen group that meets once a month on Saturday mornings. Our attendance could be better, but we belong. We trust one another in that group. We always feel the light of wisdom and support, especially when our parenting skills are lacking or our patience is frayed. Peace has tried us. As parents, I have a feeling some of you might have been there where peace has tried you. Multi-generational challenges will continue, but the aura of love that pours out from this spiritual community is what sustains me in too often a hostile world. Speaking of hostile worlds, let me speak to what goal number 1 means to me professionally. I lead the nation's federal defender program from within the federal judiciary. As Reverend Kathleen enlightened me about the astrolabe used to navigate the open seas by the stars, All Souls is my astrolabe in the rough seas of my professional life dedicated to the Sixth Amendment by building public defense organizations across our nation for those who cannot afford counsel. Many of us who toil to improve state and public defense systems are chastised as un-American. The recent confirmation hearings for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, with whom I have been working for over 5 years, capture some of the hostility we face every day by powerful people. I promise you, she is not soft on crime. They go low, we go high. Those who attack public defense work need civics lessons on how important democratic, adversarial criminal legal systems and how they work. Public defenders should be celebrated, not castigated. And the astrolabe of All Souls gets that. I know that in my heart. I want to share how the All Souls community is in my astrolabe of authenticity, my compass of compassion, my roadmap of righteousness. Recently, the Capitol Defense lawyers gathered not too far from here for the Death Penalty Working Group meeting. As the chief, I always attend these meetings to listen, absorb, and remind myself of how hard this work is on the ground with clients to whom you feel a deep attachment. I listen actively to stories of severely mentally ill clients facing execution. Too many multi-generational inmates who have terrible lawyers representing them in their trials, including a 77-year-old wheelchair-bound Texas man now facing imminent execution by lethal injection. I listen to those defense attorneys and mitigation specialists who painfully witness their own clients' deaths in the dark of the night and then go back to work the next morning. Advocates who litigate against South Carolina's new law bringing back the firing squad as a cleaner method of execution. This time, it's, quote, cleaner because there are 3 shooters with red lasers pointed at the prisoner's heart to ensure a clean hit and a quick execution. Currently, there are 2,450 men and women on our death rows across this country. 3 have been executed in 2022, and more scheduled every month. My spiritual community reminds me that they each have a light within. You, All Souls, remind me to respect and honor that light within everyone, especially when we must defend over 700 of the January 6th Capitol breach cases. This tests my compassion for the other. There is deep hostility in many places, and perhaps it is growing even more hostile for people like me, and for many of us. However, I do not linger in that gloomy place. We need one another to give us the roadmap out of there. I think most often of your lights and our belonging together, and our singing of that beautiful song, Spirit of Life, giving life the shape of justice. This community gets what I do for a living. You embrace my multicultural, multiracial family. You sustain my light within. Thank you so much for being my authentic astrolabes. Love will guide us. Peace has tried us. Hope inside us will certainly lead the way.
So my grandparents ran an Italian restaurant for about 50 years, and I grew up working there. On weekends, I would bus tables and wash dishes on Friday or Saturday night. And early Sunday, which was before the paying customers arrived, I would sit down with my family and eat lasagna and mustacholi and spagizza, which is what you get when you combine spaghetti and pizza. It wasn't fancy food. Nobody was making their own noodles, although we do have a secret family sauce recipe. But I remember those Sundays because I remember what it meant to break bread and connect with family. This fall, during the Imagining Our Future workshops, so many of you talked about the act of breaking bread and about what it means to fill this building with sound and activity. 2 of our new goals directly reflect this. First, the people of All Souls will love and care for one another across the lifespan in times of joy and sorrow and transition. And second, the people of All Souls will connect with each other and our neighbors in new ways and in a well-maintained historic building. Now, success on these goals could mean a lot of different things, but here is one vision of success. Lunch after service that starts at noon and lasts until 2 and 3 and 4 p.m. as we linger and talk and get to know one another and care for one another. So here's the thing about these church goals. They are not strategic priorities. They do not sit in a dusty book. They are not just a description of work that we want the staff to do. They are instead the covenants that bind our covenantal community. So some of us here are part of covenantal friendships or covenantal romantic relationships. I am, and Reverend Kathleen actually officiated my wedding, which was wonderful. And when we enter into those relationships, we make promises to one another. Church goals play a similar role for this community. They are promises that we make to one another. Now, all voting members of the church just received a ballot, and you'll have 2 weeks to think about these goals and vote on them. And the significance of adopting them is not that we're fulfilling some type of bylaws or governance obligation. It is that in adopting church goals, we as a community will make promises to each other. That's really important because these goals require our time, our talents, and our treasure. When my family ran a restaurant, someone shopped for the onions, someone chopped the onions, someone took the tomato paste and cooked it down for hours, someone greeted people at the door, someone poured really mediocre Chianti at the bar. And, I mean, you get it. The connection happened because we all put in work. So these two goals about connecting and caring for one another are targeted at exactly what the pandemic has frayed, our connections with each other. I joined this church a dozen or so years ago, partly because I was feeling kind of alone, and I wanted to have a building where people knew my name. I think a lot of people here feel the same way. This church and my connections here have filled me with love and meaning and fellowship. But the pandemic has frayed those connections, and not just for me. We are a smaller church. We are more loosely connected than we were before the pandemic. And for us to live up to the promises embedded in these goals, it is us who has to do the work of regathering and reconnecting and creating a culture where we care for each other. So here's a challenge for you all, and I think for some people it will especially be a challenge. Earlier today, we skipped that part of the service we call the beholding, where we greet one another. We're going to do it now, but with a twist. So say hello to someone, but do more. If you are meeting someone new, exchange numbers and set up a time to get coffee and connect. If you see an old friend, find a time to get dinner together and care for each other. If you are on Zoom, turn on your camera, scroll around the gallery, but do more than wave. Text a friend that you see. Write yourself a note to call someone. Say in the chat, hey, does anybody want to get coffee with me? And when you see someone muster up the courage to say that in the chat, then respond, yes, I want to connect with you. It takes courage to connect and care for each other. Let's promise each other that courage.
We invite you to finish taking those numbers down and connecting with each other and return to your seats. We have one more reflection piece and some music. You can tell who's really in charge here. Thank you, everyone. Please return to your seats. Oh. Meredith Higgins Hargrave is calling you all to attention. You better pay attention when Meredith speaks. All right, we have one more board member, MJ Crum, to offer a reflection on one of our goals.
Good morning. I'm MJ Crum, and I use they, them pronouns. For the past 2.5 years, I've been your secretary of the board. I've been a member of All Souls for about 6 years, and I've been attending for almost 10. But the first time I walked into this building, it wasn't to sing or pray or listen to a sermon. It was to attend a protest training that was being hosted here. In between sessions on nonviolent direct action, my legal right to demonstrate, and protest health and safety, I found myself staring at a bulletin board. It listed the principles of Unitarian Universalism, with children's drawings to illustrate them. I was intrigued. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations? A world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all? Respect for the interdependent web of all existence? I didn't know church could be like that. I had never been to a church with such a deep and fundamental focus on making the world more just. So I came back. I admit I had some doubts about the Imagining Our Future process. After 2 years on Zoom, I wondered, are more meetings, more talking really what we need right now? But as we dug into the visioning process, I was surprised. It was so powerful and meaningful to hear from all of you, to discuss what this community means to all of us. I felt myself reconnecting with All Souls' passion for justice. We asked you to list the times that you were proud to be part of this community. And you spoke about traveling to North Carolina to march for voting rights with the Reeb Project. You spoke about campaigning for DC's same-sex marriage law, which was then signed right here in this sanctuary, as Michael and Ruth so beautifully described earlier. You spoke about difficult times, too. Collective grieving and comfort after 9/11, and then again after the 2016 election. Hosting funerals for the victims of the anthrax attacks, and tolling the bell in mourning for George Floyd. You told us that you are proud of our high-profile political work, fighting for justice in government and law, but also that you care deeply about meeting the material needs of those around us. You brought up the Little Free Pantry, our food and clothing drives, and our housing ministry. DC's housing crisis was actually a particular concern. For many of you, the knowledge that unhoused people were taking shelter on our front porch has had a profound impact. It was inspiring to hear you list your dreams for this church, and All Souls that is a beacon for social justice, that fights for a sustainable future, that nourishes democracy. A church that listens to and amplifies the voices of our neighbors, that advocates for those living in poverty while also providing for their immediate needs. One phrase in particular struck me. You want a church with translucent walls, a constant flow between All Souls and the communities we exist within. From all of that, we identified some themes. You want to be connected to our local communities and in right relations with them. And you want to directly serve our neighbors, especially those who are unable to meet their most basic needs, like housing and food. We distilled those themes into Goal 6, work in partnership with local organizations to serve the needs of those in our city. I left the goal process excited and energized. I can't wait to get involved with the ministries that are making these goals a reality. I can't wait to work together with all of you to give life the shape of justice.
So when I was a kid, I really wanted to buy Nintendo games, but it's hard to get a job when you're 10. So my parents told me I could do some chores around the house and they would pay me $2 per week. So I vacuumed, I dusted, I did the dishes, and then at the end of the week, I got a $1 bill and 9 dimes. And I said, what gives? And I found out they were taking 10% of my first paycheck as a tithe, which was a rude awakening at 10. It took me about 25 years and serving on the board to really understand tithing. I now understand it has at least 2 important purposes. First, it funds our programs. In all those Imagining Our Future workshops, you dreamed big about programs, art classes, retreats, adult spiritual development courses, serving the needs of people in our city. We are an active community, and these programs require the generosity of our time and our money. Second, though, tithing is an act of justice towards our staff. The board last year worked really hard to make sure that all staff members are paid within the UUA's salary guidelines. Those guidelines determine the fair market value of our staff's labor. If we pay a person less than their labor is worth, for instance, if we pay someone $90 when their labor is worth $100, then we're engaging in a type of theft by taking that $10 difference. As a church, our justice work begins at home by paying all staff members fairly for their labor, and that requires financial generosity. So we hope that you will continue to play your pledges for this church year. We're also in the midst of the pledge campaign for the 2022-2023 year. Please make sure if you donate today that you indicate what you are pledging towards. You can go online to our website, click on Donate to donate there. If you do put money in today's offering plate, and we're about to take the offering, then please include your name with that money so that it can be a contribution of record. The offering will now be taken.
Trees of spread.
reminder before our benediction, those of you who can stay for coffee hour hosted by Executive Director Tracy Hughes, please do so. Those of you who are in the building, please enjoy coffee hour and food on the terrace. Come to the library to discuss goals and be sure to visit the Eaton Room. And if you visit the Eaton Room wall after today's service, you will find a copy of Reverend Eaton's favorite benediction. So I conclude our service today with these words. Now, since the struggle deepens, since evil abides and good does not yet prosper, let us gather what strength we have, what confidence and valor, that our small victories may end in triumph, and the world awaited be the world attained. Go in peace this day.
Will your heart and soul say yes? Will your spirit still say yes? There is more than I require of thee. So will your heart and soul say yes? Now will your heart and soul say yes? Will your spirit still say yes? If I told you what I really need, will your heart and soul say yes? So say yes. yes to love, yes to life, yes to peace, yes to justice. Say yes! Come on, y'all. Can you sing with us? Can you sing with us? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sing with us. Say yeah, 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 yeah. Say yes, say yes. Say yes, say yes. Say yeah, 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 yeah. Let me hear y'all. Yeah, yes. Say yes to love. Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. Yeah, let me hear y'all. Let me hear y'all. There's a lot of work to be done, y'all. There's a lot of work. There is more that I require of thee. Oh, there is more that I require of thee. There is always more, yeah. There is more that I require thee. There is more love, more time, more patience, yeah. There is more that I require of thee, yeah, 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 yeah. More of your love, more of your love, more of your love, yeah, yeah. So will your heart and soul say